各位观众朋友们，大家好，很高兴跟大家在空中见面，我是阿兵哥。现在您收看的是全民开讲节目。透过这几个月以来，我们可以了解台湾现在已经不是台湾前烟角木，而是台湾税灾烟角木了。如果你还不知道台湾税灾到底有多严重，那底下这段影片就可以让你了解到台湾税灾真的非同小可，甚至到罄竹难书的地步了。请看 VCR。
大人冤枉啊！古有击鼓鸣冤，青天明鉴洗冤屈。
我买卖不成立，结果国税局把之前的税全部加在我身上，我一路上就这样子没有人生，我诉求无门。我得了忧郁症，现在又得了癌症，他们还给我税单要我缴税，我已经没有钱了。100多万对我来讲已经是很大了，我已经没有办法。我20-30年我都没有工作，我一直生病，为了这个税，他们就拿了一把刀架在我脖子。你叫我要怎么活下去？我在死亡边缘，国家还不放过我，救救我！我20几年，我已经撑不住了，国家还要跟我要钱索命呀！我要人民给我公道。
国税局他突然给我来一个。总共加起来是1亿1000多万的这个税单，我为了这个案子我连续6个月都没有办法睡觉，好几次都想从我住的9楼跳下去。当时的财政部次长张胜和跟他陈情，他说我如果不罚你，你会跟那些继承人勾串。我继承人都跑光了，我还勾串什么？而且这个案子是你们国税局申请法院指定的呢，我还跟他勾串，我等于帮你们解决问题，你还反咬我一口，这是什么心态？这个我认为他讲出他心里的话，他就是把人民当贼。
每一个华民专利都要花了30-40万才能够拿下来，10年来，就申请了有1600张专利，领导人说要奖励我，可以拿专利，可以专利作价当你的股本，我傻乎的就拿了1张专利。然后去作价了，本来我公司5000万，然后我现在呢作价了变成3亿，结果呢到年底我马上要缴税，要缴1亿5千万的税。我说我连卖股票都没卖，但是我就被课税了，但是很不公平。我说那我股票给你押，他也不愿意，他认为我的股票没有价值，把我的所有的财产、房地产、所有的银行存款全部查封，全部拍卖。所以我现在是什么都没有。
我在105年的时候，我就收到国税局的通知，说要我缴奢侈税。我们夫妻俩名下只有这一间房子，而且户籍也在他规定的期限迁进去，那为什么要缴奢侈税呢？那后来几经跟这个国税局了解之后，他用了各种法条解释。你就是要缴这个奢侈税500多万，如果不缴的话，再加计罚金，总共将近1000万。
我婆婆的名字叫林王月，当时呢，我婆婆看到这张税单的时候吓了一跳啊，因为我公公婆婆他们都是非常老实的人，也是很守法的，该缴的税都缴了，就把它退回去了。可是呢，隔1年的时候，这张税单呢又来了。我婆婆是女生啊，那个林王月是男生哦。现在连性别啊，然后住址，还有呢身份证全部都改了，改成我婆婆的，就是硬把这张税单呢硬凹就是她的。可是每一年呢都是像候鸟一样又继续来报到，结果呢到85年的时候我婆婆走了，可是90年所以接到那个法院的那个强制执行，真的是吓到了。我觉得说家里呢受到这么多年的折磨，然后呢这些 违法官员呢，他是逍遥法外。这些那个不认错，然后一错再错的这些官员呢，一定要受到严重的处罚。
政府就一直的追税，追到现在，我必须要缴7000万的税。为了告诉我已经缴了4000多万了，我几乎对这个政府失去信心了。财政部的酷刑，财政部的恶劣，财政部的不守法，比任何人更加可怕。我为着台湾人民的生存，这个财政部的革命，我死了也有阮囝继续，阮囝搁死，我也有阮孙继续。
影片后，我们可以知道已经有人深陷税灾中，有人因为税灾而痛哭失声，所以恐怖税灾就像温水煮青蛙一般，很多人都还不知道发生了什么事的情况下，就陷入无尽深渊中。而在众多税灾户中，太极门是牵连最广、人数最多的税灾户，所以紧接着先来看一段影片，让大家了解一下太极门冤案。
Taiwan, a magnificent island, hailed by many as a beacon of democracy in a region plagued by non-democratic regimes. Visitors to Taiwan not only appreciate its natural beauties. They visit gardens, museums, and temples, and enjoy a millennia-old Chinese culture. The rich variety of religions present in Taiwan testifies religious liberty is affirmed and protected. Yet, on December 19, 2021, visitors to Taipei noticed thousands of people in the streets, protesting that for 25 years they had not been protected by democracy, and their right to religious liberty had been violated. In the last few years, scholars and human rights activists throughout the world have often heard the name of these protesters. Taiji Men is a menpai, similar to a school of Qigong, martial arts, and self-cultivation. Dr. Hong Taozu, the Grand Master, Zhang Menrun, of Taiji Men, has inherited the wisdom of esoteric Taoism and studied Qigong, martial arts, medicine, yin-yang philosophy, life wisdom, and heart kung fu since a very young age. After martial law was lifted in Taiwan, he started to widely accept disciples, teaching them a path to good health and happiness. There are now 15 Taiji Men academies. Dr. Hong also promoted high-profile initiatives for world peace and brought traditional Taiji Men culture abroad through over 3,000 cultural events and martial arts performances. Dr. Hong has visited more than 100 countries and has become a familiar figure in international peace gatherings and initiatives held at the United Nations. In 2014, Taiji Men was part of a coalition that launched the movement of an era of conscience. The initiative was praised by offices of the United Nations and the heads of state of several countries, with the participation of people in 200 nations, and eventually led the UN to proclaim April 5th as the International Day of Conscience. The bell's sound has also a spiritual significance in many Eastern and Western religions. Dr. Hong designed and supervised the construction of the Bell of World Peace and Love, which was first rung in Singapore in the year 2000. Taiji Men invites world political, cultural, and religious leaders to ring them, making a wish for peace. Dr. Hong devotes a large part of his time to teach Dizzy, similar to disciples, and interview each of them before they are accepted as Dizzy. There is a traditional Taiji Men ceremony after the acceptance. Dizzy show their gratitude to Dr. Hong by giving gifts in the form of the so-called red envelopes to Shifu, Grand Master, as is traditional in Chinese Qigong Menpai. Everybody understands this is part of a personal relation Dizzy have with their Shifu. Several presidents and other high authorities in Taiwan have praised Taiji Men and Dr. Hong for their contribution to the public welfare of Taiwan and for being excellent ambassadors of Chinese culture throughout the world.
Under the Zhangmenren's leadership, Taiji Men has actively participated in international events, raised Taiwan's global visibility. In the future, I also hope that Taiji Men under Dr. Hong's leadership will continue to work with the government that will see Taiwan.
How is it possible that, at the same time, Taiji Men is praised and persecuted? When martial law ended in 1987, religious liberty was officially proclaimed. However, during a long post-authoritarian phase, the ruling party still expected religious organizations to actively support the government. Those who didn't were persecuted. The 1996 repression targeted some of the largest religious movements in Taiwan, including the Buddhist organization Fo Guangshan and Yi Guandao. Notwithstanding its caution in not taking political sides, Taiji Men was also involved in the crackdown, and Dr. Hong was detained together with his wife and two Dizzy. Dr. Hong was falsely and ridiculously accused by a prosecutor who violated the law and abused his authority of raising goblins, a practice totally foreign to Taiji Men. On July 13, 2007, the Criminal Division of the Supreme Court of Taiwan pronounced the final acquittal of Taiji Men defendants, declaring them innocent of all charges. The Supreme Court also declared there was no tax evasion. National compensation for the wrongful detention was given to Dr. Hong and his co-defendants who had been detained. This should have been the end of the Taiji Men case. However, they tried to maintain their tax bills for the years 1991 to 1996, claiming that the money Dr. Hong had received in these years in the red envelopes should not be considered as non-taxable gifts, but as tuition fees for a so-called cram school, a school where pupils receive crash courses, normally in preparation for exams. Different authorities intervened in the controversy, including the Ministry of Education, which has authority on cram schools, and courts of law. All declared that in the Taiji Men case there was no cram school and no tax evasion. For the second time, the Taiji Men case should have ended there, but this did not happen. In 2019, the NTB, in accordance with the ruling of the Supreme Administrative Court and the Taipei High Administrative Court, agreed that tax bills for the years 1991 and 1993 to 1996 should be corrected to zero, but maintained the tax bill for 1992, including penalties. Logically, this did not make sense, as the content of the red envelopes in 1992 was not different from the other years. In this case, the verdict of the criminal section of the Supreme Court of 2007 that found Dr. Hong and Taiji Men not guilty of tax evasion. Nonetheless, the NTB refused to cancel the tax bill for 1992. On May 5 and July 23, 2020, the Taipei High Administrative Court wrote twice to the NTB for the central area, asking them to treat 1992 as the other years were treated. This also was to no avail. In August 2020, land belonging to Dr. Hong that had been seized was auctioned by the National Enforcement Agency, then confiscated after 2 auctions were not successful. This property was important for Taiji Men, which planned to build a center for self-cultivation on what they consider a sacred land. Hence the protests, which also targeted what Taiji Men and others perceived as the unfairness of the Taiwanese tax system in general and the immoral system of bonuses. Why did the Taiji Men case last longer with respect to other groups that had been involved in the 1996 crackdown on spiritual movements, and in fact is still not solved after more than 25 years? One answer is that Taiji Men refused to compromise with the NTB. By settling, they would have admitted that they had been guilty of tax evasion, something that is both against their principles and factual truth. Ultimately, the Taiji Men cases and protests are not about taxes or money. They are about freedom of religion or belief. Taiji Men was not raided in 1996 and persecuted ever since, because the authorities really suspected it was guilty of tax evasion. In fact, in 2021, a sensational testimony emerged proving that those who started the Taiji Men case knew that the accusation of tax evasion was fabricated. In a video, the late tax collector Shi Yusheng was heard confessing that prosecutor Ho Quan-jen, the main instigator of the persecution of Taiji Men, told him to lie to fabricate a false tax case against Dr. Hong and the movement.
但是呢，荷兰人啊，他们是，他纯粹是，
你是说他找你去只是做样子而已？就是你不管说什么，反正他写他的，是不是？
他知道是，
Why was the lie fabricated? The root cause was the attempt to destroy a spiritual movement that taught its disciples to think with their own heads. Authoritarian bureaucrats and corrupt officials are always afraid of those who dare think independently and follow their own conscience. This is also why thousands in the world admire and respect Dr. Hong and Taiji Men. This is why hundreds of scholars and human rights activists support the Taiji Men cause. This is why the case of Taiji Men was repeatedly denounced in international forums, including at the United Nations.
In June 2021, we brought to attention to the Human Rights Council the case of the Taiji Men. We denounced how the tax weapon was used to harm Taiji Men. In September, at the 88th Human Rights Council session, we renewed our appeal for Taiji Men. This time, we highlighted the confiscation of this Taiji Men place of worship by the Taiwanese government.
Those in Taiwan who believe this protest will simply go away with the passing of time are wrong. Protests have now lasted for more than 25 years. As the title of a book about the case suggests, the youth of more than one generation has been stolen, as they had to spend their best years asking time and again for a justice denied. But they did not give up. Generation after generation of Taiji men will continue to fight until the case is solved. More and more in the world will support them. In this sense, we are all Taiji men.
他们的分享中，我们知道像太极门这么好的地方，居然会被检察官局、国税局等以共犯结构的方式联手霸凌。我想请问这些贪官污吏们，你们到底要人民深陷痛苦多久？请你们拿出良心，好好听人民被税灾折磨的悲泣声，也请你们不要欺负百姓了，好吗？好，接下来我们请到海外的专家学者们对于太极门冤错假案的看法，让大家知道世界各地有很多的法税英雄正在为太极门假案争取平反。
The idea that over 300 legislators have said that the situation should be changed is just incredible. Why didn't it happen? And one answer that's come up is bureaucracy. A few individuals have been hijacking the whole government. Watching the video, and I'd seen it before, and seeing it again, it was just as tragic. But the thing that struck me this time was a line something like, "Grey hairs grow one by one." And that tied in with what Professor Jackson said about justice delayed is justice denied. Former legislator Miss Xu made it absolutely clear to me that there was nothing special about Taiji men that would make them subject of such treatment. They were irrelevant almost. It was the tax office that I needed to understand. But I also now realize that there is actually something special about Taiji men. They're what my grandmother, who was a sort of fierce Scot, would call bloody-minded. They're not going to give up. They're gutsy. They're uncompromising. They're fighting not just for their own rights, but also for those of others, for Taiwan, and for the belief in the abstract concept of human rights, trying to make sure that it's a concrete reality that can be enjoyed throughout the world. Thank you, Taiji men. Good luck. Don't give up.
Without observance and adherence to the rule of law, then we have lawlessness. And that is what happened, in my opinion, in the Taiji men tax case. I have studied the Taiji men tax case for many years. I've read many documents related to the Taiji men tax case. And I believe that I have not seen more abuse of power than I have in the Taiji men tax case. And when government officials abuse power, it affects not only the victims of that abuse, but it affects all of us, because that means that the rule of law is not being followed. And that falls on all of us, whether the direct targets of that abuse or not.
They have been taught never to compromise, whatever the price to pay. Integrity, dignity, respect, compassion, love, and peace are at the heart of their values and of their lives. But some people and institutions have shamelessly violated their human rights to justice. The DC are the best ambassadors of Taiji men's teachings to the outside world because they are the living testimonies that their spiritual values can regenerate individuals and society. This is a major contribution of Taiji men to the spread of human rights in Taiwan. This is also a precious asset for the Taiwanese society and the image of the country abroad. But the National Taxation Bureau and its ally, Prosecutor Hu, nicknamed the Judicial Rambo, stubbornly remain deaf to their call for justice.
My second comment is, it's not about money. Taiji men spent probably more money in 24 years just in legal fees for paying the lawyers than they would have paid in settling with the tax bureau. But they don't want to settle, and they are right, because by settling, they would acknowledge they were guilty of tax evasion, and that goes both against factual truth and against their conscience. Comment number 3, some people listening to me, they believe, oh, that's a minor case. There are much bigger problems in the world today, but it isn't. Justice, conscience are never minor problems. And first of all, this is a problem for Taiwan. Taiwan is in a difficult moment of its history. It needs friends. And these friends normally regard Taiwan as a beacon of religious liberty, which doesn't exist in mainland China and other countries in the region. Now, this is basically true. This reputation of Taiwan is well deserved, but there are some relics of the past. Taiwan came to acknowledge religious liberty through a bumpy road, and there are still some rocks around. This is one of these rocks from the past, and I'm afraid if this case is not solved, if there is no remedy for the injustice, Taiwan's international reputation will suffer, and the idea that Taiwan is a country where religious liberty is protected will be called into doubt.
L'affaire太极门a révélé les failles fondamentales de l'État, de droit et la façon dont le pouvoir de l'État a été détourné ou même abusé. Les représentants du gouvernement ont violé de nombreuses dispositions de procédure régulières dans l'affaire太极门. Taïwan a gagné la sympathie de nombreux pays et organisations dans le monde pour la défense des droits démocratiques en Asie de l'Est et la gestion transparente et efficace de la crise du Covid-19. Il est grand temps que cette vieille situation soit résolue en garantissant aux membres de太极门leurs droits humains et leur dignité et leur liberté de religion.
I think that we should all stand by太极门because, again, as the video brilliantly said, the battle of太极门is the battle for the most important, most essential human right, religious freedom, is the battle for freedom, is the battle for liberty, is the battle for justice, it is the battle for equal treatment of all before the law.
观众朋友，看完这段影片有什么感想呢？我请问大家，如果当国税局拿着一张不应该缴的税单要我们去缴的话，这时我们会坚持公平正义拒绝缴罚款呢，还是当个沉默者，乖乖的默默的缴了呢？然后再请大家更深入一点想想看，如果台湾所有的人都纵容这样的税务暴力，纵容税务恶官胡作非为，那台湾的未来会变成怎么样呢？所以除了世界各地的法税英雄站出来之外，全台各地的法税英雄也在各地一起发出正义之声，势必让这些贪官污吏闻声丧胆。以下是这些无名英雄挺身而出的影片，请看。各位观众，您想想看，刚才在影片中的叶阳春 L 博士等许多税灾户，以及没有在税灾影片中的，甚至还有为了错误的税单而自杀的，这样的税灾难道不会发生在你我身上吗？现在的你看完法税英雄后，不知道你的良心有没有被唤醒呢？有没有想要为台湾更好，免受税灾之苦呢？最后，让我们来欣赏为爱勇敢，请大家能够用心体会其中的含义，希望大家能够为我们自己及下一代的幸福，让我们一起站出来，成为法税真英雄，用我们的良心来让台湾有更美好的未来。祝福大家，谢谢。
承受了24年的冤屈，依然屹立不摇，为的是什么？为的就是要让我们的台湾更好。